For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a scorching morning in July 1995, 38-year-old Dr. Felix Rodriguez set out from his research camp in Western Australia's remote Pilbara region. The respected geologist was conducting what should have been a routine mineral survey in one of Earth's most ancient landscapes. He never returned. Despite an exhaustive search operation across the vast desert terrain, Dr. Rodriguez's disappearance remained a haunting mystery. His vehicle was found exactly where he had parked it, research equipment still carefully arranged, but the scientist himself had vanished without a trace. For 25 years, his colleagues at the University of Western Australia and the scientific community struggled with unanswered questions about his fate. Then, in 2020, a discovery in a secluded desert valley would unravel a web of deception that stretched far beyond one man's disappearance. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Dr. Felix Rodriguez. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The vast red expanse of Western Australia's Pilbara region stretched endlessly toward the horizon, a landscape where time seemed to stand still. In August 1995, this ancient desert would become the setting for one of the region's most perplexing mysteries, beginning with the disappearance of Dr. Felix Rodriguez, a brilliant geologist whose passion for understanding Earth's secrets would ultimately lead to his demise. Rodriguez, a respected researcher from the University of Western Australia, had earned a reputation for his groundbreaking work on rare mineral formations. His colleagues described him as methodical, cautious, and exceptionally well-prepared for fieldwork. On the morning of August 15, 1995, he set out alone for what should have been a routine 3-day geological survey, carrying state-of-the-art satellite communication equipment and enough supplies for a week in the field. The morning sun cast long shadows across the desert as Rodriguez's white Toyota Land Cruiser wound its way through the remote terrain. His research site lay in a particularly isolated section of the Pilbara, where ancient rock formations held secrets of Earth's earliest days. According to his field plan, submitted to the university before departure, he intended to study unusual mineral deposits that could potentially reveal new insights into the region's geological history. 3 days passed without incident, with Rodriguez making his scheduled check-ins via satellite phone. His last communication came at 7:15 p.m. on August 17, when he reported excellent progress and clear weather conditions. There was nothing in his voice to suggest any concern or impending danger. That would be the last time anyone heard from Dr. Felix Rodriguez. When he failed to make his next scheduled check-in 24 hours later, university protocols triggered an immediate alert. The initial response team located his vehicle within hours, finding it exactly where it should have been according to his research coordinates. The scene they discovered was deeply troubling. Rodriguez's equipment was methodically laid out, his research stations were properly established, and his field notebook was open to his last entry. Everything appeared normal, except for the glaring absence of the geologist himself. The vehicle's keys remained in the ignition. His satellite phone lay on the passenger seat, fully functional with a full battery. His water supplies, emergency beacon, and field gear were all present and undisturbed. It was as if Dr. Rodriguez had simply vanished into the ancient landscape he had come to study. The following days saw one of the largest search operations in Western Australia's recent history. Helicopter crews crisscrossed the region, while ground teams meticulously combed the area on foot. Aboriginal trackers, renowned for their desert expertise, found no signs of Rodriguez walking away from the site. The harsh terrain, they noted, would have made it nearly impossible for someone to travel far without leaving traces. Dr. Sarah Chen, Rodriguez's research partner at the university, struggled to make sense of the scene. Felix was the most prepared field researcher I knew, she recalled. He had backup systems for his backup systems. The idea that he would simply wander off or become lost was inconceivable to those who knew him. As days turned into weeks, the search revealed no new clues. The mystery deepened when investigators discovered that Rodriguez's final geological readings, recorded in his notebook, indicated something unusual about the site's mineral composition, something that didn't align with previous surveys of the area. But like everything else about the case, this detail led nowhere. The disappearance of Dr. Felix Rodriguez became a cautionary tale in the academic community, a reminder of the dangers that could befall even the most experienced field researchers. Yet for Detective Victoria Campbell, assigned to lead the investigation, something about the case refused to fit the pattern of typical desert mishaps. The working satellite equipment, the undisturbed research site, the missing researcher, these elements would haunt her for years to come, suggesting a darker explanation that would take 25 years to finally emerge from the sun-baked earth of the Pilbara. Detective Victoria Campbell stood at the edge of Dr. Rodriguez's research site, the morning sun already burning away the desert chill. 25 years later, she would still remember the peculiar stillness of that scene, a perfectly ordered research camp that felt more like a museum display than an abandoned site of tragedy. The investigation's first 48 hours proved crucial yet frustrating. Campbell's team meticulously photographed and cataloged every item at the site: the precisely arranged geological tools, the untouched water containers, and the satellite phone that still powered up perfectly. The phone's call log confirmed Rodriguez's final check-in, but revealed nothing about what followed. Everything about this scene defies typical missing persons cases, Campbell noted in her initial report. The detective had worked dozens of desert disappearances over her career, but none quite like this. Usually, there were signs of distress, of disorientation, of panic. Here, there was only orderly absence. The search teams expanded their efforts in precise geometric patterns from the vehicle's location. Helicopter surveys using thermal imaging swept the region day and night. Ground teams with cadaver dogs covered miles of harsh terrain, battling temperatures that soared past 40 degrees Celsius. The dogs showed no interest in any particular area, as if Rodriguez had never walked these paths at all. Forensic analysis of the Land Cruiser yielded equally puzzling results. The vehicle's fuel tank was nearly full, its mechanical systems were in perfect working order, and its GPS unit still displayed the coordinates of Rodriguez's intended survey points. Dust patterns on the vehicle suggested it hadn't moved since arriving at the site. Even the tire tracks leading to the location remained clearly visible in the hard desert soil, with no signs of other vehicles in the vicinity. The investigation team paid particular attention to Rodriguez's research equipment. His geological survey tools were laid out in a professional grid pattern, exactly as university protocols dictated. His laptop, recovered from the vehicle, contained detailed notes about the site's mineral compositions, with the final entry noting some anomalous readings that he planned to investigate further. Detective Campbell brought in Dr. Sarah Chen to examine the scientific aspects of the scene. Felix's notes showed he had discovered something unusual in the mineral composition, Chen explained during her interview. But the data itself wasn't complete enough to determine exactly what he had found. The satellite communication devices posed another mystery. Both the phone and emergency beacon were in perfect working order, with strong signals and full batteries. Technical experts confirmed no malfunction had occurred. If Rodriguez had faced any danger or become incapacitated, he had every means to call for help. As weeks passed, Campbell's team interviewed dozens of people: university colleagues, local miners, Aboriginal community members, and pilots who frequently flew over the region. No one reported seeing anything unusual during the period of Rodriguez's disappearance. The case seemed to generate more questions than answers with each passing day. The investigation took a toll on the search teams. The harsh desert environment challenged even the most experienced searchers, and the lack of any physical evidence demoralized the entire operation. After 6 weeks of intensive searching, the active phase of THE investigation began to wind down. Campbell refused to classify it as just another desert mishap. "People don't simply vanish without a trace," she insisted during a case review. Especially not experienced researchers with working communication devices and proper supplies. She kept returning to Rodriguez's final notebook entry about the unusual mineral readings, sensing it might hold significance beyond its scientific content. As the case file grew thicker with reports, analyses, and interviews, the central mystery remained intact. A highly qualified geologist had disappeared from a well-equipped research site, leaving behind functioning communication devices and no signs of distress or struggle. The Pilbara Desert, vast and ancient, kept its secrets, while Detective Campbell added the case to the small stack she kept in her desk drawer, the ones that would not let her rest. As months turned into years, the disappearance of Dr. Felix Rodriguez settled into the rhythm of a cold case, marked by periodic reviews that yielded nothing but fresh frustration. Detective Victoria Campbell maintained her ritual of examining the case files every few months, though the manila folder grew thin with handling, its contents unable to provide new insights despite countless re-examinations. By 1997, the university had reluctantly declared Rodriguez legally deceased, a decision that sent ripples through the academic community. His office remained untouched for months afterward, his collected rock samples still neatly labeled and cataloged, waiting for analysis that would never come. Dr. Sarah Chen, who inherited his research projects, spoke of the difficulty in continuing his work. "Every time I open one of his field notebooks, I expect to find something we missed, some clue that might explain what happened that day." The annual reviews of the case became exercises in futility. Each year, Campbell would spread the photographs across her desk. The abandoned Land Cruiser, the methodically arranged equipment, the open notebook with its final cryptic entry about unusual mineral compositions. The images remained unchanged, but time had begun to blur the memories of witnesses, making fresh interviews increasingly unproductive. Rodriguez's family in Spain maintained a quiet vigil, calling the Western Australia Police Department every August 17th, the anniversary of his last communication. His sister Maria made 3 trips to the Pilbara, walking the desert terrain where her brother had vanished. "The hardest part," she said during her last visit in 2000, "is not knowing. The desert holds our answers, but it won't speak to us." The case file gathered dust alongside others in the cold case storage room, distinguished only by Campbell's handwritten notes that grew more sparse with each passing review. The detective found herself returning to the site periodically, standing in the spot where Rodriguez's vehicle had been found, trying to see something new in the unchanging landscape. By 2005, the case had become something of a legend among new recruits in the Western Australia Police Department. They studied it as an example of how even the most seemingly straightforward disappearances could remain unsolved despite modern technology and extensive resources. The working satellite phone and emergency beacon continued to puzzle investigators. Equipment designed specifically to prevent such disappearances had proven useless in preventing or solving this one. The scientific community felt the loss deeply. Rodriguez's research on rare mineral formations had shown promise in understanding the region's geological history. Several of his theories, documented in papers published before his disappearance, remained untested. The University of Western Australia established a fellowship in his name, supporting geological research in the Pilbara region, though recipients were required to work in pairs, a direct response to the tragedy. Local Aboriginal elders, occasionally spoke of changes in the land where Rodriguez had vanished, though their observations were dismissed as unscientific by most investigators. Elder Margaret Jones, in particular, mentioned disturbances in the ancient rocks, changes that seemed unnatural to those who had known the land for generations. These accounts were dutifully added to the case file but led nowhere. As technology advanced, periodic attempts were made to re-examine the evidence using new methods. Satellite imag. URI from the time period was enhanced, soil samples were reanalyzed, and Rodriguez's equipment was re-examined with modern forensic techniques. Each effort ended with the same result: no new insights into his disappearance. Detective Campbell refused to let the case fade entirely into obscurity. She maintained contact with Rodriguez's family, with his former colleagues, and with the Aboriginal community members who had assisted in the original search. "Some cases get under your skin," she explained to her younger colleagues. "They become part of who you are as an investigator. This one never felt right, too neat, too clean, too perfect in its mystery." By 2019, the case had been cold for nearly 25 years. The Pilbara continued its ancient existence, seemingly indifferent to the mystery it harbored. The desert winds had long since erased any physical traces of the search efforts, and the landscape appeared unchanged from the day Rodriguez vanished. Yet beneath the surface, forces were at work that would soon bring long-buried secrets to light, though not in any way the investigators could have anticipated. The scorching summer of 2020 brought an unexpected break in the decades-old mystery. A mining exploration crew, conducting preliminary surveys in a remote valley of the Pilbara region, made a discovery that would shatter 25 years of silence. James Morton, a junior geologist with Western Mining Corporation, was marking potential drill sites when his equipment detected an anomaly beneath the desert soil. What began as a routine survey quickly transformed into something far more sinister. As the team carefully excavated the area, they uncovered human remains buried beneath nearly 2 meters of compacted earth. The bones, weathered by time and the harsh desert environment, told a story of violence. The skeletal remains showed signs of blunt force trauma, immediately ruling out any notion of a natural death. Scattered among the bones, the team found fragments of clothing and a badly corroded university identification card bearing the name of Dr. Felix Rodriguez. Detective Victoria Campbell, now nearing retirement, received the call she had both dreaded and hoped for during the past quarter-century. Within hours, she stood at the burial site, watching forensic anthropologists meticulously document and retrieve the remains. The location itself raised immediate questions. It lay several kilometers from Rodriguez's last known position, in an area that had been thoroughly searched in 1995. But the remains weren't the only discovery. The excavation revealed evidence of extensive industrial activity, discarded heavy equipment parts, chemical containers, and the unmistakable signs of large-scale mining operations. All of it had been carefully concealed beneath years of accumulated desert soil. Elder Margaret Jones, now in her 80s, arrived at the site at the investigators' request. Her weathered face darkened as she surveyed the area. "This place," she said, her voice heavy with emotion, "was sacred to our people. Ancient ceremonies were performed here. The rocks held stories passed down through generations." Looking at the industrial debris, she added, "Someone knew what they were destroying." Mark Anderson, a specialist in mining-related crimes, was brought in to assess the site. His investigation revealed that the area had been used for unauthorized extraction of rare earth minerals, operations that had systematically destroyed protected Aboriginal cultural sites. The illegal mining activity dated back to the mid-1990s, coinciding precisely with Rodriguez's disappearance. The excavation expanded over the following weeks, revealing the true scope of the operation. Hidden beneath the desert's surface lay evidence of a sophisticated mining operation that had operated in secret for years. Equipment serial numbers, though partially destroyed, provided the first tangible leads in decades. Laboratory analysis of soil samples from around Rodriguez's remains showed high concentrations of rare earth elements, particularly dysprosium and terbium, precisely the type of unusual mineral formations he had been studying. His final notebook entry, cryptic for so many years, suddenly gained new meaning. Elder Jones worked with investigators, identifying numerous sacred sites that had been destroyed by the illegal mining operation. Rock formations that had stood for millennia, bearing ancient Aboriginal art and spiritual significance, had been systematically demolished and processed for their mineral content. The discovery sparked a new phase in the investigation, shifting its focus from a missing persons case to something far more complex. Detective Campbell, who had carried the weight of this unsolved case for 25 years, found herself confronting a conspiracy that went beyond a simple disappearance. As news of the discovery spread, other pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Former mining contractors came forward with information about unauthorized operations in the area during the 1990s. Equipment operators reported being hired for off-the-books work in remote locations, their memories triggered by the media coverage. The remains were formally identified through DNA analysis, confirming what investigators already knew. They had finally found Dr. Felix Rodriguez. The university community, which had never forgotten their lost colleague, began planning a proper memorial. His sister Maria flew from Spain to claim his remains, finding a bitter sort of closure in finally knowing her brother's fate. But for Detective Campbell and mining crime specialist Anderson, the discovery of Rodriguez's remains was just the beginning. The evidence uncovered in that remote valley pointed to a calculated criminal enterprise that had operated with impunity for years, leaving a trail of destruction through both the natural landscape and Aboriginal cultural heritage. The truth about what happened to Dr. Felix Rodriguez lay buried in that destruction, waiting to be uncovered. As evidence mounted in the Pilbara discovery site, Mark Anderson methodically pieced together a complex web of illegal mining activities spanning decades. The mining crime specialist had investigated similar cases across Western Australia, but the scale of this operation stunned even his experienced eyes. Working from a makeshift command center near the excavation site, Anderson spread out topographical maps across folding tables, marking locations where industrial debris had been uncovered. The pattern that emerged revealed a systematic exploitation of the landscape, with particular focus on areas rich in rare earth deposits. Elder Margaret Jones proved invaluable to the investigation, her deep knowledge of the land bringing crucial context to their findings. Walking the site with Anderson, she pointed out formations that once held profound cultural significance. "These rocks told our creation stories," she explained, her voice tight with emotion. Each marking, each natural formation had meaning passed down through countless generations. The investigation team cross-referenced historical mining permits for the region, revealing a stark discrepancy between authorized activities and the evidence they were uncovering. No permits had ever been issued for the areas where they found equipment remnants and processed ore deposits. The operation had existed entirely in the shadows, invisible to regulatory oversight. Anderson's attention focused increasingly on Sean Williams's contracting company, which had operated in the region during the mid-1990s. Financial records showed the company had maintained a presence in the area far longer than their legitimate contracts justified. Equipment serial numbers found at the burial site matched machinery once registered to Williams's firm. Detective Campbell, working alongside Anderson, began connecting Rodriguez's final research notes to the illegal mining sites. The geologist's documented readings showed he had detected unusual mineral concentrations, the same rare earth elements being illegally extracted. His last notebook entry suggested he planned to investigate these anomalies further. The investigation revealed a careful pattern of destruction. Sacred sites had been deliberately targeted, not just for their mineral content, but because their protected status meant fewer people would visit these areas. The perpetrators had counted on cultural respect keeping people away, using it as cover for their crimes. As Anderson and Campbell delved deeper, they uncovered a sophisticated operation that had managed to extract and transport valuable minerals without detection. False paperwork masked the true origin of the materials, while a network of temporary access roads, now long reclaimed by the desert, had provided covert transportation routes. Elder Jones brought other community elders to the site, each confirming the systematic destruction of their cultural heritage. They identified dozens of sacred locations that had been desecrated, their ancient stories literally ground to dust in the pursuit of profit. Their testimony added crucial weight to the growing case. The investigation team discovered that Rodriguez's research area had directly overlapped with one of the primary illegal extraction sites. His geological expertise would have allowed him to recognize not just the presence of valuable minerals, but also signs of unauthorized mining activity. This realization shifted the entire perspective of his disappearance from tragic accident to likely murder. Anderson's expertise in mining operations proved crucial in understanding the logistics behind such a massive illegal enterprise. The operation would have required specialized equipment, experienced operators, and an intimate knowledge of both the terrain and mineral deposits. All evidence pointed to an inside job, someone with deep connections to the legitimate mining industry. As weeks passed, the investigation assembled a damning timeline. Rodriguez's final days aligned perfectly with a period of intense illegal mining activity in the area. His geological surveys would have brought him into direct contact with the operation at its most vulnerable point, when new sites were being prepared for exploitation. The desert had kept these secrets for 25 years, but now they emerged with devastating clarity. Each new piece of evidence reinforced the connection between Rodriguez's death and the systematic destruction of Aboriginal heritage sites. The truth was rising from the red earth of the Pilbara, carried on the winds of justice, long delayed, but finally arriving. The breakthrough in the Rodriguez case came not through advanced forensics or modern technology, but through the power of the written word. In a climate-controlled evidence room at the Western Australia Police Headquarters, Detective Victoria Campbell carefully opened a sealed evidence bag containing Rodriguez's field notebook, its pages still legible after a quarter century. The notebook, preserved in the dry desert air and protected from the elements inside Rodriguez's vehicle, contained more than just geological observations. His precise handwriting detailed coordinates, mineral compositions, and most crucially, observations that had seemed insignificant in 1995 but now blazed with meaning. Unusual disturbance patterns in protected zones, Rodriguez had written. Evidence of recent mechanical activity inconsistent with approved survey permits. Will investigate further tomorrow. The entry was dated August 17, 1995, the day he disappeared. Mark Anderson, reviewing the notes alongside Campbell, recognized the hallmarks of illegal mining operations in Rodriguez's descriptions. The geologist had unknowingly documented the precise locations where rare earth minerals were being extracted, complete with soil composition analyses that proved industrial activity had occurred. The investigation team cross-referenced Rodriguez's coordinates with their modern survey of the illegal mining sites. The overlap was perfect. His final research had mapped out the entire criminal enterprise, though he hadn't lived to understand the significance of what he'd found. When confronted with this evidence, Sean Williams's carefully constructed facade began to crack. The aging mining contractor, now 68, sat across from Detective Campbell in an interview room, his weathered face showing the weight of a secret carried for 25 years. Campbell laid out the notebook pages, watching Williams's eyes fix on Rodriguez's handwriting. "He was going to expose everything," Williams finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "All those years of work, millions in rare earth minerals would have been lost. I couldn't let that happen." The confession spilled out like water through a broken dam. Williams described how he'd encountered Rodriguez at the site, realized the geologist had discovered their operation, and made a split-second decision that would haunt him for decades. The killing had been unplanned but deliberate, a brutal act to protect an illegal enterprise that had already destroyed countless sacred sites. Williams revealed the elaborate scheme, how they had identified areas rich in rare earth deposits, deliberately targeting protected Aboriginal sites because they knew fewer people would venture there. I had processed the minerals off-site, using false documentation to sell them on the international market. Elder Margaret Jones and other traditional owners provided the final pieces of the puzzle, confirming that the sites marked in Rodriguez's notebook had indeed been places of profound cultural significance. Their testimony transformed the case from a single murder into a decades-long crime against both human life and cultural heritage. The evidence was overwhelming. Rodriguez's meticulous notes, preserved through time, had documented the very operation that led to his death. His final scientific observations, intended to advance geological understanding, instead became the key to solving his own murder. Williams's confession brought closure to multiple investigations. The murder of Dr. Felix Rodriguez, the systematic destruction of Aboriginal sacred sites, and one of the largest illegal mining operations in Western Australia's history, all connected through the careful observations of a geologist who had simply been doing his job. In a final twist of fate, Rodriguez's research had achieved its purpose, though not in the way he had intended. His work had indeed revealed important truths about the Pilbara's mineral composition, truths that ultimately brought justice, not just for his death, but for the desecrated lands he had been studying. The wheels of justice turned swiftly once Sean Williams's confession broke the decades-long silence. In the Perth courthouse, under the weight of overwhelming evidence, Williams received a 30-year sentence, justice long delayed, but finally delivered for both Dr. Felix Rodriguez and the desecrated lands of the Pilbara. The sentencing hearing brought together all those touched by the case. Maria Rodriguez, Felix's sister, spoke of 25 years of uncertainty finally ending. Elder Margaret Jones described the deep cultural wounds inflicted by the illegal mining operation. Detective Victoria Campbell, her voice steady despite the emotion of the moment, detailed how Rodriguez's own research had ultimately solved his murder. The impact rippled far beyond the courtroom. The University of Western Australia established the Felix Rodriguez Centre for Ethical Mining Research, dedicated to protecting both scientific inquiry and cultural heritage. The center's first initiative focused on developing new protocols for geological surveys in culturally significant areas, ensuring that scientific progress would no longer come at the expense of Aboriginal heritage. Elder Jones took a leading role in the recovery efforts. Working with traditional owners and environmental experts, she guided the restoration of damaged sites where possible. While many sacred formations had been irretrievably lost, the remaining areas received unprecedented protection. New legislation, sparked by the case, dramatically increased penalties for destroying cultural heritage sites. Detective Campbell and Mark Anderson's work led to the creation of a specialized mining crimes unit within the Western Australia Police. Their experience with the Rodriguez case helped establish new investigation protocols, particularly for cases involving remote locations and cultural heritage sites. The unit became a model for similar programs across Australia. The Pilbara landscape itself began a slow healing process. Environmental teams worked to restore the natural contours of the land where illegal mining had scarred the earth. Aboriginal elders conducted healing ceremonies at the affected sites, beginning the long process of cultural reconciliation. At the University of Western Australia, a memorial garden honored Rodriguez's legacy. A simple plaque told his story, not just as a victim, but as a scientist whose dedication to truth ultimately exposed a terrible injustice. His recovered field notebooks became part of the university's permanent collection, studied by new generations of geologists who learned about both scientific methodology and ethical responsibility. Maria Rodriguez found an unexpected connection with Elder Jones, the two women united by their shared loss, one of a brother, the other of sacred heritage. Together, they advocated for stronger protections for both researchers and cultural sites, ensuring that Felix's death would create lasting change. The case transformed how mining operations were monitored in Western Australia. New regulations required extensive cultural heritage surveys before and why geological work could begin. Companies faced regular audits and increased scrutiny, with traditional owners given a stronger voice in approving mining activities on their lands. Detective Campbell retired shortly after the case's resolution, but not before completing a comprehensive report on the investigation. Her documentation became required reading at the police academy, teaching future investigators about the importance of preserving evidence and never giving up on cold cases, no matter how much time had passed. The Pilbara itself remained eternal, its red earth holding countless more secrets beneath the surface. But now there was a new understanding of the need to balance scientific discovery with cultural preservation. Dr. Felix Rodriguez's final research had revealed not just geological truths, but a deeper lesson about the cost of progress without respect for ancient heritage. In the end, justice served multiple purposes: punishment for a killer, closure for a family, protection for cultural sites, and a framework to prevent similar crimes in the future. The mystery that had haunted the desert for 25 years had finally brought about positive change, ensuring that Felix Rodriguez's death, while tragic, had not been in vain.